Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host, JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the podcast where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today, I'm staying within my own backyard. In fact, my next guest is from Melbourne. It's good to have another Aussie on the show. His name is Matt, and I can't wait to connect with him. And I say connect because he is a Lego collector. So Matt, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we had a real short chat just before we started recording, and I was telling you that I'm a huge Lego fan myself. I was actually just recently a guest on a podcast. Shout out to Funkaholics podcast, and they quizzed me about my collecting journey and how I started. And one of the earliest things that I ever collected as a child was Lego, and I had a massive amount of Lego sets back in the 80s. But the way I always start with my guests is to find out how you got into collecting, and specifically Lego. What was the thing that started you off in becoming a Lego collector?
So, apart from obviously collecting Lego, as many did when we were kids, I didn't get back into Lego until I actually met my wife. So, I actually don't mind telling this story. I quite enjoy it. So, we started dating, and her nieces were all like super young, 3-4 years old. And so when we started dating, their birthdays came up, we had to go get them presents, you get kids toys. Yeah. And I had not been into a toy section in years. So we went to, I think it was Kmart, where we call it Kmart here. We went to Kmart, went down the toy aisle looking at toys, and then I saw a Lego aisle, and I could not believe the amount of Lego they had. And they had Ninja Turtle Lego. They must have just had the new sets that released in 2013. And I'm a big Ninja Turtle fan, like massive Ninja Turtle fan. So when I saw these sets, I was like taking a trip down memory lane. I was explaining to my girlfriend back then, wife now, but telling her like, trip down memory lane, how much I love Ninja Turtles, how much I used to collect Lego when I was a kid. And she goes, "We'll get a set." I'm like, okay. So from one set, I ended up grabbing the whole collection. I think there was about 5 sets worth of Ninja Turtle stuff. So I grabbed all that, started building it. And then I kind of started looking online at what else they had. And then I saw they had Star Wars Lego, Batman Lego.
Yeah.
So I went on a massive shopping spree at that point and just bought everything that I could get my hands on. And it just kind of eventuated from there. And 10 years later, it's just grown massively. Like I didn't actually think I'd collect as much as I did or have, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I started building things on my own, apart from buying sets. And like I said, 10 years later, and I've got this massive collection now, and I can't stop.
That's the way it happens. They reel you in, right? Like
bad. Really
I can't
bad.
remember what the movie the quote is from. Try to get out, and they pull me back in.
That's exactly what happened to me. And now I'm that far deep. Like there's no coming out of it now. Like I'm too far gone. So
10 years, because like people can't see, obviously being an audio podcast, but you seem like a fairly young bloke.
I'd like to think so. But...
So I'm guessing you were around a teenager at the time, or maybe late teens at that time.
In 2013?
Yeah.
No, I was 25. I'm 36.
Wow. Okay. Well, people, I said, people can't see, but you look pretty good for your age. I got to admit.
Oh, mate, I'll appreciate it. I'll take that compliment.
It's the Lego keeping you young at heart, right?
It definitely is. So. So 20 or 10, it would be 10 years this year, so 2023, 2013, so 10 years.
Wow. And it's funny you mentioned about the obviously being reeled in by Ninja Turtles, because this is a pop culture collectors podcast, and I'm just going to rattle off some of the collectors that I've had on the show, right? And essentially what they collect and the things they collect. And every one of these things has been made in Lego in some format or another. So here we go. Batman. Star Wars. Ghostbusters. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Stranger Things. Indiana Jones.
Yep.
Harry Potter. I could go
Yep.
on. Like, there's so much. Like Lego has, I don't want to say like a chokehold on pop culture collectibles, but they've done such a good job over the years of really tapping into that. And actually, it's funny when you look at the history of Lego. In the 90s, they were failing. Like, they were failing as a company.
Yeah.
It was only when they got the Star Wars for the prequel movies, when they got the license
Yep.
for that and started, that really was the boost that gave them back their dominance in the market as a toy and really catapulted
Correct.
them into this current phase. So, talking
Correct.
about all those different types of pop culture, because a lot of those stuff that I just rattled off is within your collection that I've seen, like the
Yep.
Ghostbusters and the Ninja Turtles that we spoke about, Batman, everything.
Hmm.
What's your favorite line to collect within Star? Like, well, not, I was going to say within Star Wars, because
Within
that's
Lego.
one of my favorite to collect in Lego. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what's your favorite Lego line to collect?
You know, I get asked that question a lot. Um, I do like collecting Star Wars. I'm not going to lie. I think it's obviously one of the more popular lines to collect.
Yeah,
So I do like Star Wars. Look, even though Batman is my favorite superhero, um, they they have released quite a lot of sets for Batman. The Lego Batman movie came out, and then
definitely.
they had some sets that came out back in like 2006, I think it was. And they haven't released as much as Star Wars, which is unfortunate because if they did, then I'd be all over it. But
Hmm.
yeah, look, I just really like how they, everyone's grown up watching the movies. All the prequels, the spin-off shows that they've done with Star Wars, and when they bring the ships to life, or all that stuff that you watch in the
Yeah.
movies, all the seasons and stuff like that. It blows my mind. So just to have them and collecting them, I think that's partly the reason why I do like collecting Star Wars as a theme. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan regardless. I think I'm a fan of all pop culture at this point. But yeah, I've always liked collecting Star Wars Lego, and it's again, it's one of those lines that are just never going to die off. Like it just keeps growing and growing. So
Yes, it does.
like the Ninja Turtle line, faded off. Batman kind of faded off after the Lego movie, and then they've released a couple of sets here and there. But Star Wars just keeps going,
Hmm.
and that's what I like about it. So that'll definitely have to be my favorite theme.
Actually, before we were recording, I was actually watching The Mandalorian. It's one thing
I
that
haven't started that. I'm hanging to start that. Like yeah,
no
I'm trying to
spoilers.
get a night. No spoilers. I'm trying to get a night that I can actually start getting into it. So
You
it
haven't
looks
started
going to
season
be
three
really
yet?
good. Sorry.
You haven't started season three yet?
No, no, I haven't started. Like that's what I'm trying to get a minute that I
Ah,
can sit down and start watching it. So don't tell me anything. I don't want to know.
okay, I won't. I
um,
won't tell you
but yeah,
anything.
I'm hanging out for it. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, my partner and I, we actually binge watched the whole of the first two seasons, plus the last few episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, which I've dubbed The Mandalorian 2.5.
Hmm.
And yeah, we binge watched all of that just recently and started watching the first couple episodes, binged them back to back as well. But I'm only halfway through tonight's episode or today's episode that released because it's a Wednesday here as we're recording.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely won't spoil anything for you, but
No, no,
we've
no.
got a lot to look forward to.
I can't wait.
And the other thing that you definitely mentioned, like you mentioned before, and thing that sort of drew me in actually in following your collection was, and me as a Lego fan, I'm not just a fan of creating like the stuff that comes out of the box, but
Yep.
particularly I'm a fan of mocks. And for
Yep.
people who are not Lego fans, mock is MOC, that stands for my own creation. And
Correct.
Matt,
Yep.
you make quite a few different creations within your city. Do you want to tell people a little bit about, where does the creative flair come from for you?
Yeah, I've always liked to, well, when I started, getting into Lego and from sets, it, sort of turned into, my own creations. And I started looking at what other people did. And I was like, this is interesting. Like you can do so much with Lego. And like I said, at the point, when I started collecting, I was really new at getting back into it. Then I saw people doing cities, and I started seeing that you could buy modular buildings. And that's where I was like, I need to try and build a city. Like, I
Hmm.
have to try and build a city. So that's where it started. And then I started creating a city, and then I decided, well, actually, my first mock I attempted to build was a Ninja Turtle lair, because I had the Ninja Turtle sets that I bought, which was my first set.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to make a Ninja Turtle lair. So I thought, what can I do? What are you supposed to add in a Ninja Turtle lair? Went back on some of the cartoons and the movies that I used to watch and try to figure out what I wanted to add in there, and just started just turning that into Lego and just started building it, from what I would see in real life to how I should envision it if I was to build in Lego. And that's how
Mhm.
it kind of started. And then from there, I kind of decided I wanted to do a Batcave, because Batman, like I said, is my favorite superhero.
Yep.
So again, looking at 1989, Batman is my all-time favorite. Michael Keaton, all-time favorite Batman.
I'm
I don't
with you
care what
there.
anyone says. Don't care what anyone says. I mean, not that none of the other Batmans were great or anything, but Michael Keaton is by far my favorite. So I use that for reference and try to. It's basically just envisioning what something looks like in real life and just trying to create it into Lego. I know it sounds easy said than done, but that's how I kind of learned how to do it. Yeah, and then it just learning skills. As I've gone along over the years building, I've learned different skills. I've pulled things down, rebuilt them, because I've gotten better at what I'm trying to create, and
Yeah.
that's how it kind of starts. Like, it just kind of starts from an idea. And nowadays, when I build mocks, I kind of there's a program that you can get called Studio, which a lot of other Lego people or other Lego collectors, that if they use
Yeah.
that, you can
Yeah.
create your mock on that and sort of fiddle around a little bit, more freely. And then you can just buy all the bricks, buy all the pieces you need, and just reference off that. So I've learned how to do that a little bit now, just to get a rough idea of how I want to build the mock. Order all the pieces, and then the great thing about it is, as you're building it, you can chop and change it as you're going along. And for me, I also add lights, as you can see. Unfortunately, no one else can see it, but anyone that follows me, everybody or anyone that follows me, I add lights to everything I basically build.
Yeah,
So
I definitely want to talk to you about it, Adam. We'll
yeah,
get
so
into that.
we'll leave that. Yeah, so yeah, I just that's what I try to do. Just try to envision something and what it would look like in Lego, and just go from there. There's no right or wrong. If you mess it up, you pull it apart, you start again. That's the
Well,
best thing about it.
it's in the name, right? My own
Yeah,
creation mock.
that's
Right? That's what it
absolutely right.
is.
There's no, yeah, that's exactly right. Whatever you envision, in your mind, you just try and create it, and you can trial it 100 times over until you're happy with it, and that's basically how it works, really.
And that's one of the things I loved about your city, actually, because I wanted to talk to you a bit more about the Lego City, in
Sure.
particular, because that's a big focus of your YouTube channel that you have. Just for
Yep.
people, we'll talk about and get all the socials at the end, but so people
Yep.
know you do have a YouTube channel where they can
Yep.
actually go and see videos of your collection, and essentially watching you build the city, the different phases that you've gone through as well. But
Absolutely.
I when I reached out to you, I sort of realized after we chatted and I went back and looked at your YouTube channel that I'd already watched a couple of the videos actually off your page
Right.
before.
Okay.
And in particular, the one that I came across, and it's funny that you mentioned before, was the one where you're actually doing the sewer tour, which is
Yes.
essentially all your underground. You've got like an underground, not the Bat Cave, but you've got like a little underground sewer with the Penguin and Batman in there.
Yep.
You've got
Yep.
the Ghostbusters like lair underground, and then you've got
Yep.
the Ninja Turtles lair as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So I remember watching that video and just being like, "Wow, this is like really exciting! Like what this guy has built." So I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
definitely tell people, just from my own experience watching that video, that what
Yeah.
you've done is really cool and just really clever. And as you mentioned, a lot of lighting that goes into those that actually makes them pop as well. So, well, what
Exactly.
was the lighting? Where did that start? What was the first set that you actually put lights into, and then where did it go from there? Because it's 1,000
Um.
lights in your city, right?
Oh yeah. At least I honestly would not be able to count how many lights I've added in the city. Some of the Star Wars sets that I've got. R2D2 and some of the mocks that I've built. Everything I've touched nearly is lit up. I just can't help myself. So
What was the first
um,
set?
the first set I lit up was um, the Ninja Turtle lair that I did buy in 2013, which was one of my first ones. And then I bought my first Millennium Falcon around that time. And I lit those up first. And I actually found this American company that had LEDs at the time. And yeah, I just ordered a bunch. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know how to put them in a set. So I just threaded wires and added the lights where they were supposed to go, or where I thought that I wanted to put them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came out pretty good at that point. They were just battery operated, and I left it at that. Like they were the first two sets that I lit up, and I didn't really dabble into lighting after that until I started buying the modular buildings for the city, which
Uh-huh.
unfortunately no one can see, but you can see back behind me. And when I bought those buildings, I actually went on eBay and I looked up lights for Lego, and this company in Melbourne came up, and they were very new at the time. They're very big right now. Everyone would probably know them that collect Lego. Um, I found a whole bunch of lights that they actually did kits for these modular buildings for the city, and I just again went on a rampage and bought like 5 or 6 different kits for the Ghostbusters Tower, a couple other Lego buildings that I've got, and yeah, and then it just started from there, and I've been with that, buying from that company ever since.
Who's the
And they
company?
do kits, Light My Bricks.
Okay, like my bricks.
So yeah,
I
so
can
they're
put the
based in
link in
Melbourne.
the podcast description so that people can check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So they've been like they just were really new back then, and yeah, they do light kits for pretty much every Lego set. Every time a new Lego set releases, they've done light kits, but they also do DIY LEDs. So if you are building mocks or you want to do something yourself, you can buy individual components and light them up, which is what I do now. And yeah, so it just escalated from there, and that's the result you get.
It's a huge amount of lights. Like
Yeah,
every corner of the city is lit up
yeah, and you need a
in
lot of
some
patience.
capacity, whether it be lights in the cars, lights in the buildings, lights in the streets, lights underground,
Anywhere, I'll put
anywhere and
lights.
everywhere.
I'll light up anything area. I'll light up anything, no problem.
And so like my bricks. I don't. I mean, maybe you should send this podcast recording to them, and I'll just say right here that perhaps you've probably kept the business afloat to some level, like with the amount of lights you've got in there, and maybe it's about time they sponsored a couple of your videos, maybe, or
Yeah, yeah. No, they've looked at. Look, I've worked with them a bit. They've looked after me, so
no.
I've been buying from them for about 6 years now. So yeah, definitely done some good stuff with them, and but yeah, they've come a long way. So they're probably one of the top lighting places to get lights from at this point, which is good. So yeah,
Definitely, if I'm going to get some LEDs for my own future,
yeah, you
I
definitely
know
would
where to go
recommend
now.
them.
And as I said,
Absolutely.
I'll put a link down there for people as well. With the city, so when you started getting the modulars, what was the first modular building you had?
Yep.
And then second to that, so two-part question. First one you
Sure.
had, and is there a Grail modular that you haven't been able to add to the collection yet?
Yeah, another good question. I've been asked this question as well before. So, um, well, the first modular that I bought, I actually bought 5 of them in a row. So the first 5, or I'd say 4, because one was the Ghostbusters headquarters, and then I
Love that.
bought yeah, it's great. That's such a really awesome set to have in a city. So I bought that. I got a restaurant. I bought a theater, a bank, and I can't remember what the other one was at that time. A detective's office. So I bought. They were the 5 modular buildings that I bought in one shot at the beginning. There is some that I haven't managed to get because they came out a lot like earlier before I started getting back into collecting, and now they're
Mhm.
just ridiculous prices. It's near impossible I think one's nearly $3,000. So
Well,
there's
I
no
was
way of
thinking
getting
about that
that.
with the Ghostbusters headquarters when you mentioned that.
Yeah,
That's one that I've wanted to put in my own collection one day.
yeah,
And every time I look at the cost online, I think the last time I saw one selling an opened box, not like an unopened one, was like $800 or something for
yeah,
secondhand.
yeah. I paid around probably around the $400 mark back then.
Yeah,
So yeah, and a new one, sealed one, is over $1,200 from the
yeah,
last time I checked. But yeah, I don't look. I would have like there is a set that I would have liked to have in the city. It's at the town hall. And
okay.
that's over $1,000 now. But if I was to spend $1,000 on one set, it would probably definitely be that to add into the city. It's a really nice build. But to be honest with you, the other 12 or 13 modulars that I've got in my collection, I'm actually really happy with. They're more detailed these days than the previous ones. The previous ones were really empty.
Yeah,
So the justification for what the price tag is now for basically having an empty building as opposed to all the detail that the ones they release come with now.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm pretty as far as a modular perspective, I'm pretty happy with what I've got in the collection.
Have you
Um,
got any sets in there? Because I also I follow a few different like Lego creators and YouTubers as well.
yep,
Another
yep,
one who I'm sure anyone who follows Lego on YouTube, and I'm sure you would have come across his videos, is Brixie from
yep,
Canada,
yep,
and has a few videos that I thought were really cool, where he actually got modular sets and then went to rebrickable, and then other people who are far more clever than myself and you even maybe like
yeah, yeah. No, there is. Yeah,
they
definitely.
redesigned these into completely new buildings. So he was
Yep.
able to take those buildings and essentially create these whole new separate buildings that he could then insert in his city, because he has obviously a massive Lego city as well. Have
Yeah.
you done that? Have you pulled apart any modulars and made them your own as well?
Not the modulars. I haven't. I have seen and I have thought about buying another copy of a modular to do that.
Hmm.
But again, like with the amount of space that I've got or I've utilized or allowed for my city, I've instead of buying another copy of a modular to just redo it into another building, I've sort of tried to add different things into my city. I know that every year a modular comes out, so I always allow space for that. So there was one that came out this year. There's going to be another one that comes out next year. So I'm always allowing spots for the new modulars. So until I have an even bigger room where I can have the city more or less right in the middle of the room,
Hmm.
and I've got endless space like Brixie does, to be able to just fill up space by creating rebrickable models of modulars. I
Yeah,
will do that. But at the moment, because of the way I've laid out the city and the space that I'm using, I'd rather dedicate that to a new modular coming out every year. One building I've actually created myself was my fire station. I built that from scratch. So I've just allowed for different things in the city. So I don't want to really
yeah,
fill up my space too much with rebrickable models at the moment. But I
yeah.
have seen them, and I really do like them. Like there is some that caught my eye that I would love to have in the city, but then I sort of try to weigh out, do I want to sacrifice my space for that? It's sort of a catch-22. But it is in the back of my mind for future if I decide to redo the layout, which I tend to do quite a lot. I always change the city. Then I would. It's definitely on the cards to do 100%.
Cool, cool. Look, I sound like a broken record for anyone who listens to the podcast on a regular, but space is the enemy of all collectors, right? And so when we speak about space in your room, so you look
Mm-hmm.
like you're potentially using a garage area, like,
Correct.
which
Yeah.
is quite a decent amount of space that you've got. Like
Yeah.
you got a lot of shelving in there. You've got a desk
Mm-hmm.
space. You've got multiple. Like you've essentially done like a U shape around the back half of the room by the looks of it to do your city with as
Yep.
well. I saw that on your
Yep.
most recent room tour, which people can check out on your channel as well.
Yep.
What though? Obviously, space is the easy answer, like to this
Mm-hmm.
question. But I'd love you to come up with a different answer. What has
Sure.
been the most difficult thing in designing your Lego city so far?
Um, well, considering this is the fifth city that I've built
Mhm.
or redesigned it 5 times from when I first started it, it's well that apart from space,
Like I said,
which
that's the easy answer.
which is the easiest answer. It's what you want to add in the city is the hardest thing. So you can have all this space, but if you don't have an idea of how you want the city to be laid out, and I've tried several different layouts, and some would work if they were positioned differently in the room, and others it was just not efficient to work on. To film. If I had people or friends or family coming over to check out the room, it'd be very hard to show them the city properly. So it's more about your layout and what you want to add in the city. That's most important. You know, you can have any type of space, but it's how you lay out the city in the space you're working with. And then the dilemma is what you want to add in the city. There's so many things you can add, but if you've only got a small amount of space to do your layout,
Mhm.
and again, I know space is the easiest answer, but it's the most important answer
Yeah.
because that does dictate, what your layout is going to be. It determines, how many things you can add in the city. So, yeah, I guess, on adding on to the space question or space answer, it's determining, yeah, how you want to lay out your city, what you want to include. If
And
you if you once you've got that, then it's pretty easy after that.
what's the one thing that you would say that you've learned, like when you're trying to lay out that space? What would
Yep.
be the one thing you advise someone if they were starting their own Lego city and they were trying to redesign, and they had the right amount of space, but they were trying to
hmm
work out the best type of layout? What's
hmm
what's the one thing that you've learned that now, and every time, every different version that you've made, maybe version 4 or version 5 at least, maybe it was version
Yep.
3 that you really learnt this. What's the
Yep.
one takeaway that when you're creating a city, there's one thing that you always know to do to try and get that right?
Accessibility. Biggest,
Accessibility.
absolutely. You have to have easy access at every part of the city. If
Yeah.
you don't, it makes it extremely hard to work on. Extremely hard to, if you're videoing or if you're filming or you're using your city for content, it makes it really hard to do that. But the main thing is working on it. If you don't have good access to your city in all parts of it, it makes it really hard to work on it. And I found that out with the last three layouts that I did, and this layout that I've done now, which I should have done two layouts ago. Yeah, it's just like every time I come in here and I work on the city, that's the one thing I always say. I'm so happy with the way I've done this layout because I can access the city so much easier. Whereas before, it was near impossible. I was literally climbing on the table to try and work on it or opening my roller door to try and get to the other side to work on it because it was just for the way or where I positioned the city in the room, it just wasn't from an access point. It was not working for me. It was the
Yeah.
worst. Yeah,
Yeah.
so accessibility is number one, is the key, number one thing, in my opinion.
I can definitely see where that would be an issue. I can tell even just from the Brixie videos that I watched where he had the same dilemma and I watched him learn the same lesson. So I think that's definitely something that I've seen that's not uncommon for people to learn
Yeah.
when they're creating their cities, is having that accessibility. And you have also built layers to your city. This is the other thing I've noticed.
hmm
Obviously, we spoke
Yeah.
about the fact that you've got the underground sewer system that you have around the edge, but that's also
Yep.
to hide, I think, kind of cover parts of maybe the the bottom levels where you have trains running through.
hmm
And I'm guessing if something happens with the train derailing, you want to be able to get to that, right? Like, has that ever happened as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, the this is I started doing different tiers or layers in the city in the last layout that I did. and it did give me a lot of room. But again, it made it really hard to get access to what I needed to, get to at the time.
Yeah.
So with this layout, you definitely, if you're going to be having underground trains and the train's going through the other side of the table and it derails for whatever reason, you need to be able to get to it. So I've made it accessible enough that I can get to it at any point, wherever if it does stop at any point underneath the table, I can get to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the crucial things if you're going to be raising a city, to make sure that you can get underneath. And because I also run wire or all the LED lights that I'm running, all the wiring is underneath all that. I need to be able to get to it if something's not working or I need to disconnect or add something. When I'm adding more lights, I need to get under there.
Uh-huh.
Again, it makes a lot easier just to lift up the plates, go from underneath. I've got access points at every part, so definitely makes it easier.
I didn't even think about the amount of wiring that would go into
Oh, you don't want to
that lighting and the LEDs. Wow, gee,
know.
I didn't. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about
Look,
it, I'm
you
like,
don't even want to
oh,
know. Some like at the time when I'm threading all the wiring through and I'm drilling holes through the table, the timber that I've used, and you know putting all the wires through. I'm not at the time. I'm not thinking about it, but then when I look back on it or when I'm working on adding something and I see all these wires over it, I'm thinking to myself like, how did I even have the patience to do this? Like, I mean, I've been fitting lights for a really long time, so I've kind of got the hang of it. But yeah, just hiding them as well through all the Lego pieces, hiding them under plates. It's yeah, it's. I look back on it, I'm just like, yeah, the patience is just mind-boggling, to be honest with
you're
you.
not a Sparky in your real life job, are you?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, look, it's anyone can do it. Like the lights are not hard to install, but it's just how fussy you want to be hiding the wires. And I'm
Yeah,
very fussy when it comes to that. I want to basically have no wires exposed at all. So being fussy like that, I think just adds to the pressure of lighting up things when I'm working on the city or builds or mocks.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm just yeah, being fussy doesn't help.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. And for Americans listening to the podcast, because I do have quite a number of Americans that listen.
Yeah,
Sparky, I don't know if the same slang over there, but that's an electrician. So,
yeah,
but yeah, so uh, wow. I mean, you've got this massive collection. You've spoken about the fact that when you first got in, you kind of blame your girlfriend slash now wife.
yeah.
Uh, how how do you find that she like is she helpful with coming in and doing things in the room as well and helping, or is she hands off these days? Is she like that's Matt's thing, and
No,
I don't get it, but he's got his own space and I let him do that. Like, or do you guys have a bit of a to and fro in terms of the Lego?
yeah. I'll be honest with you. The new room layout had a lot to do with my wife. My dad also helped as well, but my wife actually came up about probably 70 or 80% of the layout of the room was all
Nice.
her idea. I have to give her credit for it. So she really helps a lot. She's built a few sets that I just didn't really want to do, or I was working on something else at the time. So she's built a few things in the city. She's built a lot of sets that I just haven't got around to, just my backlog that I want to get to, but I'm so focused on building a mock or in the city, they just pile up. So she's built quite a lot of sets for me. So yeah, even up until today, she's really heavily involved, which I'm not complaining. I love it. So sometimes we'll sit there and we'll be watching something, and she'll be building a set, and I'll be working on something, or I'll be lighting something up. So yeah, she likes it. She loves the collection. She's always giving me ideas. I reference back to her. What do you think of this in the city? Should I put it there? And she's like, no, I don't like it. I think you should do it this way. So she's always giving me good feedback. She comes from a graphic design background, so she's got a really good
Good
eye
eye.
for detail.
Okay, yeah,
So yeah, no, she helped me a lot. She's very into it.
nice.
And like I said, the new layout is mainly credit to her. I've got to be honest with you.
Uh, Look, we do obviously. I'm going to be shorter on time than the last couple of
Yep.
episodes. I sort of mentioned this before we started recording, but
Yep.
I did sort of want to go into something else. you're the
Sure.
second Lego collector I've had on the podcast. The first one I had was a gentleman called Greg who runs his own YouTube channel called Brickitect. Um,
Yep.
and it was a little bit different conversation with him, as I mentioned to you earlier.
Hmm.
He was more of coming from a place of he was in a different phase of his life and he was trying to work out uh, was Lego becoming a bit of a burden in terms of the amount of Lego that he had? He's got a basement area that's essentially full and stacked, and he was using that to make to make content, which he'd
Yep.
grown this huge channel, building a lot of stuff with his son. But it had kind of become a bit of a burden for him. Now you seem to be in a bit of a different headspace to what he is. You seem to be still in that very much having fun,
Yep.
creating and building your city. You got different, totally different collection to what he does, and he's actually moved into more of the mock building now and
Hmm.
gone down that road with his son. But for you now as a Lego creator, like Lego content creator,
Hmm.
would you have any advice to other people who might want to start creating a Lego YouTube channel or online content as well?
Yeah, just have fun doing it. Don't take it too seriously,
Hmm.
because it can become, demanding within yourself. Like, I've got to post something every week. I've got to post something every day. What am I going to do? So, trying to, be, especially when you're starting, you've got to not only make like you've got to build the Lego, then you've got to
Yeah,
film it yourself, then you've got
yeah.
to edit the content. So you're three in one, essentially. So already in itself, and if it's just a hobby, you don't have 8 hours a day to do all that. So
Hmm.
just have fun, and if you don't post something, it's not a big deal. Just do it the next week. Whatever you're filming or whatever content you're producing, make it enjoyable so your audience enjoys it. That's the best way I can describe it. Like I don't, if I'm not feeling a video or something that I've filmed and I'm not happy with it, I'm not going to post it, because if I don't like it, I know that my audience is not going to like
Yeah.
it. So I'm not going to post it just because to throw something up there. I prefer filming, good quality content rather than just anything and put it out there.
Content that you'd
I've,
like to see as
I've,
well, maybe, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't try to, I try not to make it a burden. Just have fun, enjoy doing it, because if you don't, you're going to lose the love for building, and then you're not going to not only not create content, but you're not going to want to build or collect anymore. So yeah, just have fun with it. It's the best advice I can give to anybody that wants to start doing, content creating.
That's great. That's good advice. And I have to admit, coming from my side as a podcaster and the content that I create here, it's the same thing. I do this because I love it. It's a hobby that would be great to be something else later down the
Of
track.
course.
But I've
Absolutely.
been watching as more and more episodes that I release come out. I've been watching, the listener, the numbers of the listeners go up, and the amount of followers on the different platforms going up, and it's just it all kind of it's like a snowball effect, right? You've just got to turn up
Yeah,
and keep doing it. And I have to
absolutely.
also give credit to Greg. Like I didn't mean to make it sound as though he hates Lego now or anything.
No,
I think he still
no, it
really
just,
enjoys Lego, but he was in this sort of in this mode where he was trying to figure out a few things in life. I think at the time, and it was very interesting because I think as collectors, we also all go through that phase of, wow, I have a lot of crap.
yeah, I
Wonder how am I dealing
honestly,
with it someday?
yep. Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. There's been times where I just don't come in the room for a week or two. Like I just don't have the motivation, or I look at there and I'm just like, look at all the, like, what is all this stuff for? Like, it's meaningless at some point. I'm like, it's just plastic, or it's just toys. Like, so
Yeah,
I get in that mind frame, and you're not, I know I'm not the only one, but if it makes you happy and it's
yeah,
sort of something that just you can share with, if you have kids, like in my case, my son's starting to come across it now and he's enjoying it. So that's where it has the meaning, and it's, yeah, you just got to enjoy it. It's just something
hundred
different in
percent.
life. So yeah, you have your days, you just think it's a waste, but you have that only for a brief moment, and then it's back to like, yep,
So having
this is
fun.
awesome, having fun, and that's all it should be, man. That's all it should be.
Totally, totally. And look, that being said, I think this is a good place to wrap it up and say that I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. There's probably a good another other couple hours of this that we could chat about in
Oh,
terms
for
of
sure.
your the build, like the types of building that you've done, and maybe the tips and tricks that you could give to people there. Just quickly before we do wrap up as well,
Sure.
um,
Sure.
where do you tend to source the majority of your Lego from? I'm a Bricklink guy. Are you
Bricklink.
same thing?
Yep, Bricklink. Yep, absolutely. Bricklink is my go-to. Easiest to find parts, in bulk as well. So yeah, definitely Bricklink's my go-to, 100% to get all
Yeah,
my
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Good place for people if you are looking to pick up. It's essentially it's like the black market of Lego, but it's now actually owned by Lego.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yes, absolutely. So yeah, definitely the place to go, 100%.
Yeah, go there if you want to get your pieces and you want to start building your own stuff, or just pull apart the sets that you have and start building something out of those. Have fun with it.
That's it, 100%. Exactly right.
Matt, thank you very much. Before I get you to go, I do always get people to plug their socials. I did mention you've got a YouTube channel. Where can people
Yep.
find you?
So it's pretty easy. It's AusLego Collections. That's the name for all my platforms. So you can just look me up on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So yeah, just AusLego Collections. The profile picture's a really cool picture of Iron Man helmet, the Lego Iron Man helmet, so you can't miss it. So yeah, check my socials out and enjoy the content that I put up.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the content on your YouTube channel, and I'm going
Thank
to
you.
keep enjoying it, and I'm sure other people will as well. So thank you again
Appreciate
for
it.
your time. This has been great, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.